Hawk and Hare, Hare and Hawk, whichever way you put it. We're back for day 4 of Royal Ascot. Unfortunately, day 3, well, we kind of missed the boat a little bit trying to get a video out for day 3. Yeah, blame it on me, Candice.
I am. I already did. I was furious. I was sitting here, microphone ready, like, here we go, Hare and Hawk. Don't say whatever way you want to put it. Hare and Hawk. And
Well, but
it's just a
wait, whoa. Who's had the most winners so far this week?
That's beside the point.
But that's Hawk and Hare. I guess if we do it in alphabetical order, it's Hare and Hawk. We can figure it out. There'll be one way. I mean, to be fair,
Everybody wants to cuddle a hare. Nobody wants to cuddle a hawk. So I think that solves it.
You've just broken my heart right there. Well, let's get to Ascot day 4. It's going to be 7 races again on the card. We get the 8 coming up tomorrow to close out the card at Royal Ascot, the 5 days. But day 4, and it starts off with the Palace of Holyrood House handicap. A really interesting contest that over the 5 furlongs for the 3-year-olds. The Albany or the Albany, however you want to say it. We'd say Albany here in Australia, but apparently it is Albany Stakes, Group 3 for the 2-year-olds over the 6 furlongs.
Albany?
Apparently so, yes.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I've learned something new.
Apparently so. I mean, as I say, in Australia we'd say Albany, but apparently it is Albany. I got told that when I was on air last year at Sky Racing.
Okay.
The Norfolk Stakes over the 5 furlongs, that's for all the 2-year-olds there. Hardwick Stakes coming up over the mile and 4 furlongs. The Commonwealth Cup, the Group 1 on the card for the 3-year-olds over the 6 furlongs. And that's probably the race of the festival in terms of the depth and the competition in there. The Queen's Bars coming up over the 1 mile 6 furlongs for the 3-year-olds. And closing out the card with the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes, a handicap over the 1 mile 4 furlongs. So some really competitive races, and we've at both ends of the spectrum as well, in terms of some really speedy, precocious types, and also the classy, classic types, and the stayers as well, Candice.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at this point, just give me any kind of race, because I can't win anything.
Well,
so
at least here
I'm
you've got a mix of
throwing the darts and just hope that one finally hits the bullseye.
Well, at least here you've got a mix of handicaps. You've got, your group races. There's, it's a competitive card. Look, let's hope that we're able to both get a winner
Not
here.
both.
This is what we need.
No. You've had enough. You've had enough.
Well, who knows? We actually, just for full disclosure, we actually haven't shared our tips, so we don't know what the other person likes in this race, in each race, and so we might end up being on the same thing in every race. You never know, Candice.
Oh, no. I mean, that's a bad sign for you. I've gotten everything out of the way, though. I've had like 2 or 3 horses at big prices that finished 4th just to ensure that I got no money back. On day 2, I got my last place finish out of the way. So I got that too.
And Goring finished last by like a half mile.
Wasn't on the screen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it in theory, it can only go up from here for me.
Well,
but I don't want to drag you down.
Let's see how we go. We are recording this just before day 3 starts. Day 3, you will have seen our selections on Twitter. Hopefully, we've managed to have a winner on day 3, but again, we don't know that at this point. But let's get into day 4, and we'll start with the Palace of Holyrood House handicap. Comes up over the 5 furlongs for the 3-year-olds, and this is really interesting because a lot of these horses would normally be going in different directions to this. They wouldn't be coming to Ascot, but they've got the opportunity this year. Art Power, the favourite at 5-2, will to win with a number of those ones next to him before getting defeated last time out. He's at 8-1. Then you get out to 12-1 about Dancing in the Street. Also Never Dark at 12-1. Look, Candice, the market's really saying here 5-2 Art Power. It's the one to beat. What did you think? Did you think Art Power was the way to go?
I think he's the one to beat, no doubt about it. But this race seems fairly open when I had a look at it. I wound up going to a horse who's a little bit further down in the field, being the 16 Mighty Spirit.
No, you didn't.
I did. Is that wrong? Is that the wrong answer?
See, this is what I'm saying. We haven't been sharing our tips. That's my selection as well. But yeah, you go,
We
and
both agreed on a 16-1 shot.
we did. Well, you give your reasoning, and then I'll get into my reasoning.
Okay, I mean, Richard Fahey trains Megan Nichols hopping aboard. This is from a barn that, to be frank, Richard Fahey's had it a little bit tough to start off this season. But this is a filly who I really liked towards the end of last year. We saw her finish second to band practice in a condition stakes back in September, but really took a step forward in a novice stakes back in October, beating the Bell Conductor and showing some real grit there, I thought, on that occasion out at Catterick. This is a horse who has some tractability about her, so I'm not too concerned by the extreme draw. And more importantly, soft ground, heavy ground, whatever the ground we're going to get, it shouldn't be any concern. She loves it wet.
I mean, for me, though, it was a similar sort of thinking. Richard Fahey, we know how good he is with these emerging sprint types. John Dance, we've seen what he's managed to do as an owner with Lawrence in recent years. With Mighty Spirit, I was a real fan of her last season. I thought her run when she was beaten by Mrs. Bouquet was really, really good. And that was at Goodwood in a final. She was favourite that day, but I still thought it was a really good run. Betty's Hope, that's Mum's Tipple form. Raffle prize in the race here last year. I think it was the Queen Mary from memory. And so her runs as a 2-year-old were really, really good. My concern is that she may not have progressed leading into a 3-year-old career. But for me, I was weighing up between 2 horses. She, as you said, was drawn extreme near side, and I was also looking one on the far side in the form of Dylan de Vega. But and actually as well, Richard Fahey. So, the stablemates there, I was weighing up which way to go. But in the end, I went with Mighty Spirit, especially as you say, 8-7, gets the 3-pound claim of Megan Nichols, so it gets down to 8-4. I mean, that's huge. That's 8 stone 4 in a race like this. I just think it looks an absolute gift. And so for me, Mighty Spirit, well, there we go. See, I told you we didn't compare notes. That is...
When she runs fourth and we get nothing out of it, I'm sorry. It was
I know. But this is a strong push. If we're both on, I'm sure there'll be people that will be following. So Mighty Spirit, the selection for both of us in race 1, the Palace of Holyrood House Handicap. Moving on to race 2. Now, make sure you don't pick the same horse I do here, Candice, although actually this is one race that we have talked about in recent days, and I get the feeling we may end up on the same horse here. This is the Albany Stakes, where Flying Aletha is your favourite for Wesley Ward, currently at 5-1, ahead of Mother Earth 6-1 for the Balladoyle operation. And then you get out to, how would you say it, Satahi at 7-1, something about that. Willa Bell at 10-1. I know you were a fan of Photo Call Her Dam, but which way have you gone here in the Albany Stakes?
I mean, I'll give a little bit of a mention to Flying Aletha just because I've been pretty vocal about her on Twitter. I think she is the best of Ward's 2-year-olds. There's little doubt amongst that for me. She's very typical of what we've seen of his horses who've had success over here, and that she has extremely good gate speed. She's very professional. She gets the right jockey in William Buick. I know she didn't have a jockey till recently, but he's been off to a flying start this season. So you get an informed rider as well. A lot to like about her. Of course, concern for me at this stage is just the ground. Today recording, we don't quite know what the ground's going to be later in the week, but the prevailing thought is it's going to be pretty soft, and I just don't think that's necessarily up her alley. You mentioned Willabelle and Photo Call, and that's the one that I'm going to go to. I absolutely adored Photo Call during her career. She was out here in America for an extended period of time. She was a multiple Grade 1 winner. And was very good. Could have had more victories than that, maybe if a couple races pace-wise went in her favor. She was purchased for $3 million after her career as a broodmare. And Willabelle, I thought in the debut was very nice at Yarmouth, finished second, beaten a short head behind Catapult. I thought both of those top 2 looked like smart individuals going forward. And so I look for Willabelle to build on that performance and hopefully keep on going from it. For me, I think sometimes with these 2-year-olds, people look to 2-year-olds who won by a wide margin and made a flashy performance. But sometimes, for me, I like the ones who maybe had to fight for it and can really, learn something from that as far as what racing is about.
Now, is Rizzo agreeing with you or disagreeing with you?
I think she's angry. I think she's like, there you go. You're being dumb, picking more losers. So that's how it goes.
Rizzo is Candice's dog, by the way. If you're wondering who Rizzo is there, you could hear it in the background. Look, for me, Flying Aletha is the one that I am going with. I just had a look at a lot of these replays, and I found it difficult to go against her. I agree that the ground may be against her, and that's the concern. But again, we see so often these American horses come across. They've got that gate speed, that early speed that the others behind them just simply don't have. And even if it might blunt them out in front, it still gets them really strung out. You're going to want a horse that's near the speed. I think the race is unlikely to collapse in that scenario. And just for me, I think that Flying Aletha may be able to handle it in these conditions if it doesn't get too soft. Now, of course, if the rain doesn't come, I think I become more confident with Flying Aletha. But I did end up going the way of Flying Aletha to give Wesley Ward a winner for Royal Ascot. And it'd be a historic win as well, wouldn't it, Candice, with everything that's been going on, for Wesley Ward to still have made it to Royal Ascot and to have got a winner under these circumstances.
Oh, it's pretty incredible. I mean, he's traveled a couple horses over very early. Flying Aletha was one of them. And he usually prepares his best 2-year-olds at Keeneland, which is a track that's been closed. So he's had to totally change things, having horses like her out at Gulfstream Park in Florida. And it's been a very different scenario. He's been very open about how he's had to specifically train his 2-year-olds differently than he ever has. So, certainly wishing the best for him. And I mean, to echo your thoughts, my concern is just the ground, but I do think she is clearly the best of his 2-year-olds.
We move on to race number 3. Again, this coming up for all of the 2-year-olds. You can run, whether you're a colt, a gelding, a filly, all of them can run in the Norfolk Stakes. This is a Group 2 coming up over the 5 furlongs. Your favourite here is the 4 Eye of Heaven, coming off that nice win on debut. It's currently 7-2. Has got out from 7-4 best odds, so a bit of a drift there. Lipizzaner is at 13-2, and Lipizzaner is there, a horse that I want to talk about a little bit, just given the Australian angle. Golden Pal, the Learjet's at a big price there, 7-1, and then you get out to double figures the rest. I just want to make sure that, nope, there are no others there. It seems a bit of a how do I put it? It just seems like the market has drastically reduced in percentage, because it just seems like there are quite big prices there about those at the top of the market, Candice.
Oh, there definitely are. It's pretty striking to see some of the prices. I know you said you want to talk about Lipizzaner, so I'll get it away. That's my selection, and I'll just say Aidan O'Brien has done nothing wrong. Soft ground is fine, and Ome Sword. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I tipped Lipizzaner as well. We're 2 from 3 the same. That's great. No, look, I watched him on debut. He was in the first 2-year-old race of the season at Naas back in March, which I think is actually a positive for him coming into this sort of a lineup, because he's obviously had that one preparation already, which helps. He went up to the 6 furlongs last time out and was just caught late. I think it's going to be a strong form race. We'll obviously see how Battleground performs in the Chesham Stakes as well. But I just think Lipizzaner, I look at him coming back to the 5 furlongs, I think is going to suit, drawn the right place to take effect. And I think as well, what's going to be really interesting with him is that he's the type of horse who I think can prove quite progressive. You mentioned Ome Sword. She was at her best as a 3-year-old. I think there's going to be more to come. So I think, obviously, you've got the Irish Lights reference there. Irish Lights was a 1,000 guineas winner in Australia. I think you're going to see the best of him at 3, but I think he's the type of horse who can win here. So who can believe it? We've got 2 of the first 3 the same. I don't think that's going to continue from here on in. But
I don't think so. But I do want to give reference to one horse, not picking this one in here, being Golden Pal for Wesley Ward, but I just wanted to mention, you had your Australian pedigree angle. Just want to mention with this horse, folks in America I'm sure would know, but this one is out of a mare named Lady Shipman, who was a turf sprinter here in America, and a very good one at that. When you look through her form lines, you might think that she wasn't as good as she was, but that's much in part due to a lack for all the lacks in Group 1 races we don't have in America. The one spot we lack them is in the filly and mare sprint race. There's very few options. They've even, in the last couple of years, created more Group 1s in the turf sprint race to begin with. which were not available during her career. But the few times that she did step out in international Group 1 company, she did very well. She was second, beaten a neck in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint in 2015 behind Mongolian Saturday over rain-affected ground. And she did go over to Meydan once and race in the Alquoise. That was the Alquoise that was won by Buffering. She finished 7th that day, but she did beat home some nice individuals. Not Listening to Me was behind her, as was Gold Dream and Soul Power. So she had a bit of quality during her career. Again, concern for me with Golden Pal is maybe the ground, but he's certainly one who's bred to be good. So no matter what he does here, I would keep an eye on him going forward.
We were both there that day at Meydan, weren't we?
We were, yes.
And, I still owe Adam Blenko from Racing and Sports a steak dinner from that night, because he and I had a head-to-head. I said there was no way that Buffering would beat home Peniophobia. And look, I think they finished 1-2.
You turned on your real home for your adopted home that quickly.
I know. I mean, to be fair, look, I would stand by that to this day, but unfortunately that night it didn't quite pay off. What can you do? Let's move on to the Hardwick Stakes. Race 4 is coming up over the mile and 4 furlongs, and really a top lead-up race going towards the King George the 6th and Queen Elizabeth Stakes over this course and distance coming up in about a month or so.
It is. I always find this race in particular difficult. I'm not sure exactly why. That doesn't bode well, considering how not well I've been doing this meeting. I need to kind of get it together. But for me in this particular spot, I end up looking straight to Defoe. This is a horse who, because I think he's been running against the likes of, Enable or Gaiath, he hasn't really gotten the credit that I think he deserves. It seems like it was forgotten so long ago that he won this race last year. And again, maybe people didn't give him credit because he defeated Nagano Gold from the Czech Republic and not, big name in second. But ever since he was gelded back in 2018, he's been a totally different animal. If you go back and watch the video of his races prior to the gelding operation, you would see that he'd lose focus a lot mid-race. He was kind of looking all over the place, and that completely changed after that surgery. He had a couple of big victories last year. Of course, the original plan was going to be Meydan. He finished second behind Loxley in a narrow finish in the Dubai City of Gold. The Gaiath form, we talked about it a little bit earlier on in the week, but I just really could care less where anybody finished in that race, because it was a race where Gaiath was always going to have a very prominent pace advantage, and that's exactly what happened. So he got the run that he needed for the fitness, and I think Defoe, the one to have here, I'm currently seeing 8-1 for him. That feels quite big.
Yeah, I'm actually going for an even longer shot on the board. It will be interesting to see if Anthony Van Dyke can give Aidan O'Brien his second win out of a Mark Kavanagh trained mare. We obviously saw Atlantic Jill produce a Russian Emperor, and then Anthony Van Dyke out of Believe and Succeed. So amazing how this racing world is so small and just keeps getting smaller through pedigrees. But no, I'm actually going the way here of the 8, and that is Hamish. Really nice 3-year-old last season. He was very progressive. He looked a type that would improve at 4. He looked, again, similar to Lord North, that he was going to be able to make that step. Lord North always had much more class and was competing against better company going through like the Cambridge here and races like that. But I just always thought Hamish was the type that would be able to step forward. I think the 1.5 miles is probably going to be his perfect trip in time between the 1.5 miles and the 1.6 miles. He won over the 1.6 miles last year. But look, I feel like Hamish is the type who can make a real impression in a race like this. It is an open race, but for mine, Hamish, the way to go. We've seen James Doyle already having a really strong Royal Ascot, and I think he can continue that with Hamish.
One thing I'll say about Anthony Van Dyke that I think is a positive for him in here is it seems like they've maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, have done away with putting any pieces of equipment on him. I understand maybe the desire to do it because he can kind of linger back in the field a little bit in his races, but boy, it felt like every time last year they tried to put pacifiers on him, blinkers on him, it was just an epic disaster. I think he's one of these horses that you put some piece of equipment on him and he just gets a little bit too focused. He'll over race a touch. So if you do like Anthony Van Dyke, that's the positive that I would say is no equipment, no extra equipment on him. I think is something that he needs. I suppose we wouldn't be remiss if we didn't mention LR Cam, who brings that Lord North form to the table here, just beating the short head. Why was it that you didn't like him, considering how much you liked Lord North?
Because I simply don't think that he's going to be a mile and four horse, a mile and a half horse. I just think a mile and a quarter is his distance. He's bred for mine to not really see out that trip. He is by Frankel, out of Attraction, who was a Coronation Stakes winner. She was a very good mare in herself, but she couldn't get past a mile just for mine. And even watching the way that he races as well, I personally didn't think that he would see out a mile and a half. I did give him a long look, don't get me wrong, but for mine, I thought he was worth taking on here.
Okay.
That was a very meek okay.
Just rolling with it.
Okay. That's you don't sound like you're completely sold on my reasoning there.
I mean, I'm not picking him. There's not a lot I can say. LR Cam's been one of those confusing horses for me where I understand the appeal to everybody, but I always feel like he's kind of had a hype that he hasn't really lived up to, if you get me.
Well, we move on to what is going to be one of the toughest races to dissect all week, really, the Commonwealth Cup. It is a difficult race. The 6 Pierre Lapin is 4-1 favourite. The 3 Golden Horde 13-2. The 14 Kamari 7-1. The 13 Wooded 15-2. The 4 Lope y Fernandez at 8-1. And then you get out to 12-1 about Millal and also Mum's Tipple. And I can already hear you snickering back there, laughing at some of my pronunciations there. So thank you. I appreciate it. Which way did you end up going in here?
Oh boy, this race is so tough. I feel like since they added this race to the calendar, we look at it every year and we're like, wow, half this field can win. And that's what I felt looking at it again. Pierre Lapin is very good. Lope y Fernandez, wet ground, I'm sure is going to be to his liking. Kamari, what can I say? I adore Kamari as a horse, and it's telling to the depth of this race of how much I like her and how I think she's had a good preparation leading into this and how I can't pick her to win, to be honest. I wound up going to a horse who I've had some time for quite some time now, and that's going to be the Jessica Harrington trainee Millal, the 3-year-old daughter of Star Spangled Banner out of an Indian Ridge mare. We saw her win her debut last year in July, and she's just been very impressive, I thought, ever since then. She defeated a raffle prize back in September to win the Shively Park Stakes, so she's obviously proven at the highest level. I just simply don't think she stayed the mile over in the Guineas. Obviously, Love was very commanding in that effort, and she was well back, so I think the cut back to the sprint is going to be handy for her. And I was mentioned it on another podcast I was on, but whenever I would be scrolling through Twitter, occasionally you'll see like a video of a horse going by and it'll stop you like, whoa, who's that? There's literally like 3 times that happened to me with her because she is just a really big girl. She looks every bit sprinter. We'll see how she handles the ground, but she's proven over soft at the Curragh. I'm not sure if soft ground at Ascot over an undulating course might be a little bit too difficult for her because she is such a big horse and don't want her sinking into the ground too much because that'll make her have to work hard. But I really want to give her a chance. Jessica Harrington was pretty bullish about her in some stable tours, and I've liked her from the beginning. So, it's crazy when you look at a race like this and with so little racing for these horses at 3, and yet your Shively Park winner is sitting at 10-1. That feels like a lot.
Look, I have to admit, I had 4 leading chances, and I've been back and forth with them all. Millal was one of them. I do agree for mine that Millal didn't see out the mile. I think going back to the 6 furlongs to 1,200 metres will really suit her. I had to look a number of different ways here in terms of the speed, the way it was going to play out from those gates. What's going to really interest me here is I think that they're going to probably split into 2 packs. I think you're going to have the Kamari-led pack down the outside, and I think you're going to have Mum's Tipple lead them down on the inside. Now, what's been interesting in Ascot the last couple of years has been that later in the week you've ended up wanting to come to the inside because it's the ground that seems to prove fresher. So what wouldn't surprise me is if that inside group ends up being that outside group. And for mine, I just am really going to be interested to see what Mum's Tipple can do here. Look, very disappointing in the 2000 Guineas. Didn't see it out. As simple as that. But he's the one horse in here that I feel has shown X factor at all. I mean, I don't know. I take that back. There are a few horses in there that have shown X factor, but to me, he's the one horse that is a real true standout. Again, I think he's one of these horses, like we were talking about the other day, who is either going to perform really strongly or just performs terribly. There's no in between. There's no middle ground. He's either going to get out and roll and prove too difficult to run down, or he's going to end up proving, going bust. But I think it does help that he is going to be on a different side to Kamari. I think if he was on the same side as Kamari, that would probably see him out of his comfort zone early, whereas the fact that he's going to be able to potentially go a different way to her, I think might mean that he's less outside his comfort zone, and that might just allow him to take victory here. So for me, I am going to play Mum's Tipple at that 12-1 price, but it is very open. As I say, I was looking at four of them. I was going between Pierre Lepan, Kamari, Milal, and Mum's Tipple. I've ended up going Mum's Tipple. You're really quiet over there.
Crickets. I can't make a cricket noise, but I'll just say crickets and we all know what I mean.
What do you not like about that reasoning?
No, there's nothing wrong. I like Mum's Tipple. I actually bet him in the Guineas, so I can't fault you there. I'll be interested in, again, the ground with him, progeny of footsteps in the sand. I think that's going to be, the key all day long. But I agree with you. He's shown X factor. You're getting the right price.
Footsteps in the Sand has had some wet trackers, though. It's has some horses that have been able to get through it. Some obviously not, but I don't think that necessarily rules him out. Again, it's the same thing that I was thinking with the fillies race earlier, that potentially you're going, that if the ground does deteriorate that badly, you're not going to want horses that are too far off the speed, because it's really going to break up with some of those speed horses in there.
Right, 100%.
Well, let's move on. We'll get out of that very difficult race. There were a couple of other words I was thinking of there, but I better not say them on here. Just very difficult race. Works well.
I'm going to get a text message while we're saying this now.
Queen's Vase coming up, a Group 2 over the mile and 6 furlongs, and it is for the 3-year-olds. Now, very open again, and you've got 3 equals favourites here in the forms of the 2 Berkshire Rocco, also the 9 Born with Pride, the 8 Santiago at 4-1, the 1 Aldebaran not far away as well at 9-2, the 5 Nobel Prize, the brother to the likes of Highland Reel and Idaho, is at 11-2, and that's your race really. The 6 On Guard Next Best 12-1. Candice, I know you've had a lot of time for Born with Pride. Is that the way you've ended up going?
It is. You know me so well. I've been waiting for her to come back here at Ascot. Lots of Aussie ties, as you would know for her. She's the 3/4 sibling to Raheen House and Shreo, so we know she wants to go far, certainly. She's only raced twice. She won the debut really, really convincingly over heavy ground in the Montrose Filly Stakes over at Newmarket. Came back at Kempton, and William Haggis was pretty open before the race, saying that she absolutely needed the run that day, and she looked like it. She just looked like a horse who was completely short. But get her in here to a Queen's Vase. You're going to get her over the trip she's been looking for. And again, wet ground, absolutely no problem with her. Tom Marquand will be riding, so maybe an Aussie link there, because, boy, he was good when he went down under during the off-season.
Wasn't he just? He became known as Aussie Tom just because of his success down there, although I know he is a proud Brit. He wouldn't want to be giving that away. Look, it is a very open race. There are many ways you can go. I did look at Born with Pride, but in the end, I'm actually going the way of Aldebaran, coming off a pretty good 2-year-old season. Aldebaran, he raced
Blinkers on
really
over
well.
A staying trip.
Yeah, well, look, I don't mind that if that just switches him on. Again, I think the thing is, you look at this race and there's probably enough here to suggest that there might end up being a couple of horses that go out quite hard, which might end up just allowing him to settle. The thing with Aldebaran, he's bred to get this sort of a trip by Dubawi out of a Manduro mare, who is a half to horses like Masked Marvel, who we saw. Did he win or he ran well in a St. Ledger Masked Marvel? I'm I can't really remember now off the top of my head. He ended up coming to Australia. I do know that. And so I think what's going to be really interesting for me is this horse getting up to the trip for the first time, that good juvenile form. I just feel like Aldebaran is the type of horse who seems to fit the profile of a Queen's Vase winner. Obviously, you'd love to have had him. You'd love to have had a run under your belt. But I think for him, he's going to be really interesting. And just for what it's worth, Mars Marble, he did win the St. Ledger. I just Googled it to make sure.
Google is your friend.
Well, it is, and when you have those things you forget, it does help.
That's me all the time. I feel like in this industry, so many of our colleagues like know everything from the top of their head. I'm not that person. I'm more like the logical reason my way through things. Like I feel like people will ask me, who won the Kentucky Derby 3 years ago, and I'm like, where's Google?
We've had plenty of arguments about this over the years. We've had plenty of arguments about this over the years, haven't we?
Yes. Memory is not my strength, so I feel you.
No, but I mean, to be fair, my memory is normally quite good, so that's a little bit of a concern that I couldn't remember that. But we'll move on to the final race here, and that is the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes, a handicap over the 1 mile 4 furlongs. And your favourite here, it is West End Charmer, who does have to carry a bit of weight. Currently a 13-2 favourite in what is a very open affair. The 9 Durston 8-1. The reserve there hereby at 10-1. So we'll see if he ends up getting a run hereby. And then you get out to the 2 El Misk, the 19 medal winner at 11-1. Candice, very open. Which way do you go?
Speaking of pedigrees, of course, Il Misk, I was waiting for you to give us the Agugu reference, Mr. South Africa, but obviously El Misk out of Agugu, coming in for John Gosden. I ended up using 2 in here because my top selection is hereby, and being the reserve, we don't know yet if he's going to make his way into the field. I mean, if he does, you have to imagine those odds are going to come in from 10-1 because he's proven here at Ascot. We saw him win at the end of last year in the Marilla Stakes over soft ground, over 1 mile 6. I mean, you're basically asking him to do very similar thing here, just a slightly shorter distance. So I think he makes a ton of sense in here. If he gets in, he's going to be single figures, but really fits the conditions well. But since we don't know if he's going to get in, I'm going to give you another horse just in case. And luckily, well, unluckily for us, if he finishes 4th, I can't handle that many more, like 30-1 shot force. But I'll go with Indianapolis as my horse in case hereby doesn't get in. Sitting at 33-1 is the son of Galileo, who comes in here for trainer James Gibbon, who I must say, from a small group of horses, I mean, this is not the largest barn. His horses have been ready to roll here in the beginning of the season. I believe he's winning at about a 40% clip. So his horses have been doing quite well. And this is a horse who we saw win over heavy ground at Leicester to wrap up the last season. He's raced really well at Ascot in the past. In fact, he won a handicap out here last August on Sugar Cup Day and was very nice on that occasion as well. He's had the run this year, came out at Newmarket, wasn't asked to do a whole lot. There wasn't anything wrong with that performance. And I look for him to step up today. So I'll say hereby is my official top selection. But if he doesn't get in, give a long look to the 14 Indianapolis.
That's fair enough. I was very keen on Indianapolis last year. I think it was Sugar Cup Day from memory. I'd have to go back and have a look. But Indianapolis.
Just said that. Are you listening to me?
No. But I'm trying to remember if that was when I was.
At least you admit it. You're like, no.
No, not really. No. I was listening. But what I'm just trying to say is I'm trying to remember if I liked him on that day.
Well, hopefully it was. That was when he won.
Yeah, but no, well, he won twice at the back end of last season, so that was why I wasn't sure. But it was that day. That's right, it was Mark Zara. I was just trying to remember what the link was there. It was the rest of the world team. They dominated there. I think Vincent Ho ran 2nd or 3rd as well. It was both of my homes over the last decade. I was cheering for them over that concluding stages. The other thing as well, you mentioned Agugu. Well, you say South Africa, and yes, okay, she was the champion filly from South Africa, but she's Australian bred, like all the best people and all the best horses in the world, right?
Oh my gosh, help.
I'm wondering if anyone's actually coming to your help right now.
They aren't. That's the worst part. I'm stuck in this.
Oh, well, you know what? If you don't wish to do it, that's fine.
I'll keep kangaroos. I'll keep platypus. and that's it. That's what Australia gives me.
No
Cute little
hawk.
critters.
No hawk.
Well, I said cute little critters. That kind of axes you out.
Yeah, that's true. No chief little hawk am I. Yeah, look, here in the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes, I went for Durston, the 9. Again, I liked that form from last season. Quite similar to a horse like Hamish earlier in the card. I did really like some of those progressive types who were 3-year-olds last season. I didn't necessarily like the crop as a whole, but there are a couple of them, like the Sir Ron Priestleys, the Durstons, the Hamishes that I thought could take a step forward this year. Durston ran really well at Goodwood, was beaten a neck by Sir Ron Priestley. Did give him quite a bit of weight, and it was a big effort from Sir Ron Priestley, but steps out here as a gelding for the first time, and I just get the feeling he's the type again who might be able to take another step forward. So for mine, Durston here, but it is a wide open affair. There are plenty of chances. So Candice, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Your best bet for the night. Which way are you going?
Before I give it to you, I want it to be known because there was some talk on Twitter, folks a little bit uncomfortable with how brazen I am with the gelding operation. Some of the men, it's a hard thing. I want it to be known that you did it this time, not me.
What did I do?
You picked Durston, who's a first-time gelding.
I think isn't he like the third first-time gelding I've picked this whole? Wasn't Aldabaran first-time gelding or someone? One of them he's not the only first-time gelding I picked.
So is that like your theme of the card, like Team No Balls?
Team No Balls. Yep. Okay. Do you know? Are we going to get shirts made? Team No Balls.
I'm not wearing them.
Why not? Well, okay. It probably fits better for you than me, but anyway. Okay. Come on. Best bet. Which way are you going?
Best bet of the day, Willabelle in race number 2, the Albany for the 2-year-old fillies. Loved her dam, loved her first race. I think this is a filly who has a very big future and right connections, right? Trained by John Goss and Frankie Dettori aboard. It's worth noting she is already trimmed up pretty significantly. I did another podcast about today's races on Tuesday, and she was sitting at 10-1, and she is nearly halved at this stage. So expecting her to maybe take some more play as we get closer to a start. So if you like Willabelle, hop on as quick as you can.
For me, it's going to be Hamish in the Hardwick Stakes. Again, a difficult race, but I do really like him as a horse going forward. So for me, Hamish all the way there in the Hardwick Stakes. Well, Candice, No Balls Hare, thank you very much for joining us again on Hawk and Hare. Wait, are we going Hawk and Hare or Hare and Hawk?
Oh my gosh. Ladies first. We just went over this.
That's right. Okay, ladies first. Okay. Well, then now I'm going to have to adjust like the little graphic at the start. That's a lot of work. Sorry.
This is why you're single. Oh, I'd have to do this. It's just a lot of work.
That's a low blow right there.
From a place of love.
Thanks very much for joining Hawk and Hare, Hare and Hawk, whichever way we're going to go. We'll make a decision about that for day 5. Hopefully you found a winner. Hopefully we found a winner, more importantly. And we look forward to...
You don't even appreciate our fans. Hopefully we got a winner. Screw you guys.
No, because the thing is, hopefully people that are actually listening in might actually be listening to what we're saying. So if we found a winner, hopefully they've found a winner. It's a communal experience. We've got to be able to share the love here, Candice.
I've been awful. Please. I hope you have a winner or more winners than me, which is right now a 0.
Well, to be fair, I'm hoping you have a few winners here. And to be fair, I'm hoping that you might at least have 2 winners, given that we've got 2 of the same.
Hope so. Thanks
very much for joining us on Hawk and Hare, Hare and Hawk. We'll be back again for day 5 tomorrow.